Hello, and welcome to Modern Explorer, The Interviews. This is Glenn Norberg. Today, I will be talking with Lynn Armbruster about the most mind-boggling encounter I have heard to date. Lynn is a rancher in Custer County, Colorado. A lifetime hunter, Lynn has hunted all over the U.S. Using both rifle and bow, he has hunted deer, elk, bear, mountain lion, to name a few. None of those experiences prepared him for what he was going to see on a snowy night in 1996. They have since spent decades trying to figure out what the heck they saw. If Bigfoot wasn't weird enough for you, here's Dogman. So sit back, relax, and watch Lynn give his testimony about this close-up encounter with the most unusual cryptid so far, Dogman in Colorado.
It's something I would never want to experience again.
Really?
I don't want to see it again. I mean, I've brought my son out here and my son-in-law and everything because he's into stuff like that. And we've come out here and drove this at nighttime and stuff, trying to see if we could see it again. But I really don't want to encounter it again. I mean, it was that nerve-wracking. Yeah, we were driving up through here. There was snow on the ground. So we're driving really slow, coming up through here, just about this pace. And went around these curves. It's kind of me and my wife talking, coming back from Cripple Creek. And there's a big S curve up here. As soon as we got around this S curve, we seen this thing.
Now, how long were you following it before you...
Like I said, it was 3-4 minutes.
3 or 4 minutes.
Yeah, and it's just...
At about this pace.
Yeah.
And you're watching it in front of you. You got your low beams on.
Yeah.
And
hobbling down the road, running on all fours, and it slowed way down, so I slowed down, and then it kind of slowed way up, so I hit my brights. When I did, it stood up and started running on 2 legs. And then finally it turned around, and I could see its eyes, and they were red, and when at that point it stopped, and I stopped. And we're just looking at one another. So I hit my brights. When I did, it stood up on 2 legs, turned around, and started running down the road on 2 legs. And my wife freaked out, said, "Don't you stop." I said, "I'm not."
Because now, a cat kind of moves really. Oh, there's a nice deer. A cat really moves smooth, right? They kind of don't lope.
This is, I believe this is the sharp curve. So right here is where we come around the curve, and it was about where that deer's at right now, the furthest one. Okay. And it was on this side of the road, and it was running up the road, kind of like this, just kind of going along. And so I slowed way down. We're watching it. I thought it was a mountain lion, and had my dims on it. We're watching it up here around this curve, and we got about right to here where this deer is at right now. It was ahead of us right here on the road.
About how far away was it?
Probably 50 yards maybe.
Okay, so maybe that the first tree on the left there that's really big. Okay.
Yeah. And so I'm going real slow. It's going down the road on 4s. And like I said, it started slowing down, so I started slowing down, almost come to a complete stop. And when I did, I hit my brights, and it stood up, turned around, looked at us, and its eyes just lit up solid red, and it turned around and started running down the road on 2 legs. And it had a long bushy tail on it, had a head on it, kind of looked like a German Shepherd or a Doberman Pinscher. Big pointy ears, big nose out on it, long slinky arms, and it turned and went up the side of that mountain. And that's when I said, "I'm out of here."
Okay, so you described let's go back to when it's on the ground, the body shape, the whole thing. What
kind of stood, I don't know, 3 feet high on all 4s, running, And so you couldn't really tell that it was as big as what it was until it stood up. When it stood up, it was every bit of 7 foot tall.
And then it had you said its tail. What was its tail like?
Its tail had like no hair on it, clear down to the end. It was bushy on the end of it.
Kind of like a lion's tail,
Yeah.
almost. Okay, that's really interesting.
Long, slinky arms, and you could tell when it stood up, it didn't have paws. It almost like hands with claws on it.
Would you have said this thing had shoulders?
Yes.
It had shoulders.
Yeah.
Not like a cat doesn't have collarbones.
Right. It had shoulders on it. I mean, it was the freakiest thing I'd ever seen in my life.
Muscular?
Yeah, very muscular.
Okay, so that's how tall it is. How wide? I mean, people talk about the width of the shoulders of Sasquatch and stuff.
Almost, I tell you that, to be honest with you, it almost looked like it was human.
Really?
Yeah.
It's just freaky as all get out.
Yeah,
and it
with long hair on it, long gray hair. I mean, it was just.
Now, was it like a lot of animals will have lighter hair on its belly?
I couldn't really recall.
Okay.
I know it had a big chest on it and a big head with a big muzzle on it.
Man.
and it was, it was freaky. I mean, it.
Now, when you said the eyes lit up red, eye shine?
Yeah.
Okay. Not so they weren't glowing by themselves.
No, it was just
eye shine,
light shining on them.
Wow.
And we went on down, and like I said, it ran up in there on the right.
Okay. Well, I'd like to get out. So this is the hillside that it would have skedoodled up. Now, obviously, it's all burned out now, but when that was green, piney,
yeah, it jumped off the side of the road and went up there to the right, so it had to have went right up that slope.
Yeah, that's a heck of a slope too.
And this is where we spotted this thing running down the road, and when it got up on its 2 hind legs and started running down the road on 2 legs, it went ahead of us and cut up to the right and went up the side of this mountain here somewhere. And me and my wife was just totally freaked out. She said, "Don't you stop." And I said, "I'm not." Just floored it, kept going.
Wow.
Best description I can give you is it had a head on it. It kind of looked like a German Shepherd or a Doberman. It had the big pointy ears that stood up, had a long snout out on it, and it was covered in long gray hair, clear down to its tail, and its tail kind of looked like it had no hair on it all, clear to the end, and the end of its tail was bushy. And this thing's running down the road on 4 legs, and when it slowed down and I slowed down, it stopped, turned around, looked at us. Its eyes lit up red from the headlights. And when it stopped and I stopped and I hit my brights, it stood up. And when it stood up, it was probably every bit this tall. And its arms were long and slinky like this, had a big muscular chest on it. And you could tell because it started running down the road on 2 legs and its arms were going like this. And you could tell it didn't have paws, it was more like hands with claws. And
it had shoulders.
Yeah.
Muscular.
It was broader up in here than it was in its hip area. It wasn't like it was all evenly. Up in here, it was broad.
Okay.
And it had big, heavy shoulders on it, muscular-looking arms, and everything on it. And it's, like I said, its tail looked like it had nothing on it, clear down to the end. It was bushy on the end of it, and its legs kind of was like a arched. Like a dog or something would be, and you could tell it had big feet on it, and this thing's just going down the road like this on 2 legs running, and I'm like, freakiest thing I ever seen in my life.
Now you said, I keep hearing something up there. You said the legs, it was like if a dog stood up.
Yeah, so when it
I'm going to back up so I can catch your legs.
Stood up, you could tell that it wasn't at a full straight leg. It was more like an arched, like this.
Okay.
And So even when it ran down the road on 2 legs, its legs were always bent.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? Like a V.
Uh-huh.
That's what was weird about it. Watching it, it was...
Did it seem natural? I mean, obviously, did it seem like it... Did it seem more adept at running 4-legged or 2-legged? Or did it, like, when it went to 2 legs, it was like, okay, this is weird, but it seemed like it could easily run, like a bear when it's up on 2 legs is goofy.
This act like it was probably more comfortable running on 2 legs than it was on the 4.
Really?
Yeah.
That's that's creepy.
Yeah, because once it, like I said, it was going down the road like this on 4 legs. When it stopped, turned around, looked at us, and stood up, and it was on 2 legs. So then it obviously knew we were there then, because we'd come up on it. So when it stopped and got up on its 2 legs and started running down the road like this, it seemed like it was in its natural form running, and it just ran up ahead of us and then cut up to the right and went up over that hill.
Wow.
And when it went up the hill, it wasn't on all 4s, it was on its 2 legs. So,
and it wasn't using its hands to help. I mean, that's a heck of a hill. How much snow was up there at the time?
We probably had 3-4 inches of snow on the ground.
Okay.
At that time.
This is 3 a.m, so it'd be cold.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. And you've been up here in other times and just felt creeped.
Yeah.
Did you feel creepy in here before this encounter?
No, I always kind of liked this area coming through here because, like I said, it was so lush, and I'm a hunter, and but just certain areas give you a weird feeling. I mean, like and ever since that has happened, and now it really creeps me out. I don't even want this area, so.
And then you also said you found carcasses.
Yes, found a lot of deer carcasses off the side of the road. And as you can see, this ain't the kind of road you're going to drive fast on.
Right.
So hitting a deer up here is kind of unlikely. And you go 30, 40 yards off the road.
I'm just getting
find deer carcasses, and then maybe 30, 40 feet in that find another deer carcass, all in certain areas, and
that's creepy. Hands. You said you saw.
When it got up on its hind legs and started running, you could tell that its front things looked more like hands than paws. You could tell that they were like this, scattered out. So they were just
definitely finger.
Yeah, finger-looking hands.
But you didn't see any thumbs.
No.
Okay.
I mean, we never got that close enough to see, detail. But you could tell it wasn't paws; it was hands.
Oh man.
With slinky, long hands.
Okay.
On it, and it just. Yeah, it was creepy.
Did you ever feel threatened by this thing?
Only when not really by it, but on the past time after it, of thinking about what could happen. Like I told you, if I'd had a gun, would I have took a shot at it or whatever? And then you think about, well, what would the results have been afterwards? Could this thing have turned into a human or whatever? And then you're up for murder because you killed some naked person out here that ain't,
American Werewolf in London. Yeah.
I mean, you've seen shows and freaky shit and you don't think nothing about it. But then when something like this happens, it's like, what would have happened if I'd have shot it?
Yeah.
I've hunted in Pennsylvania. I've hunted in Ohio, Canada. I've hunted Michigan, and I've been in West Virginia, everywhere, in a lot of wilderness areas, and hunted all big game and everything else. And I come out here and mule deer hunt up here in Beulah and everything. But after seeing that thing, like I said, I had a buddy that wanted me to come up here and mule deer hunt around this area, and I said, not me. I said, I'm not.
Well, even. I'm going to say evolutionary or whatever, that just seems wrong. Shoulders, arms on a dog's.
Well, like I said, me and my wife started trying to do some investigation after that about what was it we really seen, and had other stories pop up and people had pictures and stuff, and they called it the Dogman. And we looked this thing up, and it looked exactly like what we seen, other than in their pictures this thing has a bushy tail all the way up, where this one didn't. Its tail was completely bare down its tail, and its tail was probably 2.5, 3 feet long. And like I said, it had nothing. It looked like long hair or nothing on its tail clear to the end of it, and the end of it was bushy.
Did it look mangy at all?
No.
You know, it makes me think of the Egyptian god Anubis.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's what it reminded me of too. Something almost looked like something like you would see in something like that, with the heads type and stuff.
Yeah.
Especially you get out in these woods and stuff by yourself, and because there's something like that out here wandering around. I pack a gun on me now, no matter where I go.
Yeah. Okay.
Son-in-law and my son, we came down through here because he wanted to check it out, and there's carcasses and stuff all over back in there in the woods. It ain't from somebody just driving through here and hitting a deer, and the deer going off the side of the woods and dying.
Interesting. Now, did you actually check out the carcasses or just notice them?
Yeah, we got out and checked them out. They were chewed up.
Chewed up.
Yep.
Interesting. Did you notice anything particular about like how the legs, were they busted up or?
No, I couldn't.
Okay.
Tell because they were so decayed at the time.
Oh, okay.
It was just bones there, but yeah, okay. These were all 20, 30 feet off the road.
Oh wow.
And more than one. You'd get out and you'd find a carcass laying there, and then maybe 30, 40 feet from it be another carcass.
Oh wow. Wow. Yeah, that's spooky. Because nobody's whipping along this road at 40, 50 miles an hour to hit a deer.
Yeah, as you can see, you gotta drive slow down it. It's not.
Yeah. So this is more like what it would look like back at your time.
Yep.
This before the burn.
Yeah. It was thick like this. Like I said, a lot of that back behind us is all burnt out. But before, back in '96, it seemed like this whole road was like this. It was lush and green all the way through it. It was just. And you used to be able to camp and stuff up here. Me and my wife come up here and checked out a spot, and I brought a buddy up here and wanted to camp. And I said, dude, I wouldn't camp up in here if they paid me. He brings his wife up in here and camps. And I said, well, good luck. The only thing he carries on him is bear spray. I said,
right.
Not me. It's something I would never want to experience again.
Really?
I don't want to see it again. I mean, I've brought my son out here and my son-in-law and everything because he's into stuff like that. And we've come out here and drove this at nighttime and stuff, trying to see if we could see it again. But I really don't want to encounter it again. I mean, it was that nerve-wracking that you come across something like that in your lifetime. You've been a hunter your whole life, been out in the woods, and you come across something like that. You just, you can't explain it. I mean.
And before this, was this anything on your radar?
No. Not like that. I mean, I've encountered things like in stories and stuff, a Bigfoot, stuff like that kind of gives you the creeps, but not like this thing did. I mean, it did not look like no Bigfoot. Far from it. I mean, this thing had, like I said, it had a head on it. It looked like a German Shepherd or something with a long snout. And
why, if you're following it up the road, I'm just playing this out. You're following it up the road for, a time.
Right.
Before it stands up. Why do you think it allowed you to follow it behind?
I don't know. And it's like I said, it's running on all fours. And the closer I'm getting to it, I'm realizing it's not a bear. It's not a mountain lion because it's got gray hair. It's got a long tail on it and with only bushy on the end of it. The closer I got to it, the weirder and freakier it got. And so I'm like I said, I come almost to a complete stop, and it stopped even. And that's when I hit my brights to get a better view of it, and that's when it stood up.
Oh, man.
And turned, looked at us, and then turned around and started running down the road on 2 legs.
So it was almost like...
It almost acted like it wasn't that afraid of us.
Yeah.
But it was... It definitely wanted to get away from us, but it wasn't spooked enough to...
It's almost like it was on all fours to make you think it was something else.
Yeah.
Because if it was more natural on its 2 legs, that it
You're right.
maybe was on all fours to make you think it was just a mountain lion so that you wouldn't
Right.
pay much attention to it. And then you... Did you hit your brights before you stopped? What?
When I stopped, it was still on its all fours, but it had come to almost a complete stop.
So it stopped first, or you stopped?
It stopped. So I stopped and wanted to check it out closer because I was getting closer and closer to it, and it was starting to freak me out because it no longer resembled a bear or a mountain lion, and had this long gray hair on it and freaky looking ears sticking up and a snout on it. So when I stopped and it had almost come to a complete stop, it was just barely moping then. And when I hit my brights, it completely stopped, turned around and looked at us. And then it turned back around, stood up on its hind legs, and started running down the road on 2 legs.
And how far down the road did it run
Probably,
on 2 legs now? Guesstimate.
From here past that curve right there.
Okay, so 100 yards?
Maybe 50,
this curve, not that
50
curve.
50 or 60 yards anyway.
Okay.
And then it cut and went up to the right and went up the side of that mountain.
Wow, okay. Wow, that's really interesting.
Yeah, and like I said, it acted like it was, since we had already gotten that close and hit it with the brights and everything, like I said, and it stood up, it acted like it was more comfortable running on 2 legs than it was on 4 legs.
And then, it's hard to say. Did it seem surprised? It's hard to...
Like I said, it didn't act like it was really that spooked. Like, something had come up on it or something, but it didn't act like it was going to rush off, out of the way or whatever. It
didn't have an expression. Could you tell?
You couldn't tell.
Yeah.
It was, and it all happened so fast and everything back then. And like I said, this happened in 96. And I think back on all of it and everything and try to think of every little detail and stuff that happened. And it's just, I'm at the point now, even me and my wife, we look at one another and say, did this really happen?
Yeah.
You don't want to tell the story to people and stuff because they're gonna say, yeah, right, da 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 da.
Yeah.
But me and my wife both know what we saw.
Well, there you go. Another very odd Colorado cryptid encounter testimony. I would like to thank Lynn for taking me on that drive on Dogman Road and telling all of us his account of that early winter morning encounter. If you or anyone you know would like to tell their story, whether it's from Fremont County or somewhere else in Colorado or anywhere else in the world for that matter, please email us at encounters@modernexplorer.me. We'd be happy to document your experience. You can remain anonymous if you would prefer. We just want the stories documented. There's something going on.